Before we begin, please subscribe and like this channel so you never miss a new true story. My daughter-in-law looked my wife in the eye in the house I built with my own two hands and said, "Get out," at my own son's birthday party. My name is Elias Monroe, 63 years old, born in Detroit, raised by a mother who cleaned office buildings at night and a father who worked the line at a Ford plant for 31 years. I didn't inherit money. I built it. Started a small HVAC repair company out of the back of a '94 Chevy pickup, grew it into Monroe Climate Systems, one of the largest commercial heating and cooling contractors in Southeast Michigan. 42 employees, contracts with 3 hospital systems. I paid off my mother's house before she passed. I put my son, Marcus, through Michigan State without a dime of debt. My wife, Carol, was the reason any of it mattered. 40 years married. She was the one who believed in me when the bank didn't, who co-signed the loan on that first used van, who sat up with me at 2 in the morning doing invoices by hand before we could afford software. She was gentle, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday and never raised her voice, not once, in 4 decades. Marcus married a woman named Danielle 3 years ago. Smart, ambitious, worked in marketing for some downtown firm. I tried to like her, I really did. But there was something about the way she looked at our house. The 5-bedroom colonial in Bloomfield Hills that Carol and I bought outright in 2009. Like she was already measuring the drapes. Something about the way she talked about family wealth planning at Thanksgiving. Always steering the conversation toward what Marcus would eventually inherit. I let it go. Carol always told me, "Elias, pick your battles. He's happy. That's what matters." So I picked my battles. I stayed quiet at the comments about how old-fashioned our decorating was. I stayed quiet when she suggested Carol's cooking was a lot of salt for people our age. I stayed quiet because that's what a father does when he wants to keep his son close. Marcus turned 35 this past spring, and we hosted the party because we always hosted the party in our backyard, under the same oak tree I planted the year he was born. 50 people, string lights. Carol spent 2 days hanging herself, despite my telling her to let me hire someone. She wanted it to be perfect for our boy. Carol was in the kitchen most of the evening, refilling trays, the way she always insisted on doing even though we could have hired staff. She never wanted anyone to feel like a guest in a hotel. She wanted them to feel like family. Around 8 o'clock, I stepped inside for more ice and heard Danielle's voice, sharp and clipped, coming from the kitchen. I stopped in the hallway, out of sight. "You've been hovering all night," Danielle was saying. "Just go sit down somewhere. Let the caterers handle it. Actually, you know what? Just get out of the kitchen. Get out. This isn't your event to run." I heard Carol's voice, soft, wounded. I was just refilling the, "I don't care. Go sit with the old folks. Let me handle my husband's party." Her husband's party, in my house, under my tree, with my wife, who'd spent 2 days on those lights, being told to get out of her own kitchen like hired help. I didn't walk in. I didn't raise my voice. I stood in that hallway, and I felt something settle in me. Not rage. Something colder and steadier than rage. I've built a business out of patience. I know how to wait for the right moment to turn a valve. I walked in, poured myself a glass of water, and said, calm as anything, "Danielle, sweetheart, could I borrow you for a second? Out on the porch." She followed me, probably expecting nothing more than small talk. I didn't yell at her. I didn't even mention what I'd heard. I just said, "It's getting late. Thank you both for coming," and went back to the party like nothing happened. Carol asked me later if everything was all right, and I told her yes. I wasn't lying exactly. Everything was about to be all right. Here's what people don't understand about a man who spent 40 years running a business. I don't react in the moment. I gather information. I make plans. And I had already, quietly, over the past year, been making some. See, 6 months earlier, on the advice of my accountant, and out of nothing more than ordinary estate planning, Carol and I had restructured our will and set up a family trust. Marcus was still the primary beneficiary of everything. The house, the business shares, the investment accounts. That never changed, and it never would, because none of this was ever about punishing my son. But there was one clause my lawyer suggested, standard language really, about spousal contingencies and trustee discretion in the event of demonstrated conduct inconsistent with family values, language that gives the trustees, Carol and me, the ability to adjust distributions if a beneficiary's spouse acts in bad faith toward the grantors. I hadn't thought I'd ever need it. I signed it as a formality. That night, after the guests left and Carol had gone up to bed, I sat in my study and I made 2 calls. One to my lawyer, first thing in the morning, to formally document what happened, with a photo Carol didn't know I'd taken of her standing alone in that kitchen, tears in her eyes, that one of the caterers had actually snapped and later sent me out of concern. The second call, a week later, was to Marcus. I asked him to come by, alone, for lunch. I didn't ambush him. I didn't perform. I just told him the truth, plainly, the way his grandfather used to tell me things. No shouting, just facts laid out like a blueprint. Son, your wife told your mother to get out of her own kitchen at your birthday party, in front of the caterers. Your mother hung those lights herself because she loves you. I need you to know I heard it, and I need you to know it's not the first time I've stayed quiet about how she talks to your mother. Marcus went pale. He didn't defend her right away, which told me something. He'd probably seen glimpses of it himself and made his own kind of peace with staying quiet, the same way I had for years. I told him I wasn't asking him to choose. I told him I loved Danielle enough as his wife to want better for their marriage. But I also told him calmly that Carol and I had updated our estate plans months ago, before any of this happened, and that going forward, any major family gifts, the down payment we'd been planning to help with on their new house, the shares I'd planned to transfer to him early, would be paused until there was, in my words, a demonstrated repair of respect in this family. Not punishment, just patience, formalized. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because a man who built something out of nothing knows that money without respect just becomes another kind of poverty. Marcus was quiet a long time. Then he asked to see the photo. I showed him. He put his face in his hands. 3 weeks later, Danielle came to our house alone. I didn't ask her to. Marcus told me later he hadn't asked her to either. She'd asked him for our address, of all things, like she'd never truly been in the house as a guest and not a future owner. She sat across from Carol and me at our kitchen table, the very table she'd banished my wife from, and she apologized. Not a performance. Real tears. She talked about her own mother, about growing up watching her stepfather control every dollar in the house, about how money and belonging had always felt like the same fight to her, and how somewhere in that fear she'd started treating our home like something to secure, rather than something to be welcomed into. I didn't need to say much. Carol reached over and took her hand, because that's the kind of woman my wife is. Steel, wrapped in kindness. I told Danielle that trust language wasn't a threat, it was a mirror, and what she did with what she saw in it was up to her. Things didn't change overnight, but they changed. Danielle started calling Carol just to talk. Not about parties, just to talk. Last Thanksgiving, she was the one who insisted on doing the dishes so Carol could rest. Small thing, meant everything. I never told anyone else what happened that night in the kitchen. Marcus doesn't know I'm telling you now. But I think about it sometimes. How the loudest kind of justice in this life isn't shouting or slamming doors. It's a quiet man with a pen, a lawyer's phone number, and enough patience to let the truth do the work he never had to raise his voice to do. My wife still hangs those string lights every year. And every year, Danielle helps her.